Okay, so there was one time like that. I was to write essay, an academic essay within the confines of 500 words, and I was required to write a lot of things in that same essay. It was difficult to put everything, all the thoughts, the message, and everything in just 500 words. So there were tips that really helped me. I just devised so many tips that helped me to reduce my words. In fact, the word count even reduced. It was even a little bit below 500 words, yet none of the content was affected or distorted. So now I want to look at these tips I use that really helps me. I want to share it with everyone. So we are looking at how to reduce word counts in essays without reducing the content. Now the first tip is spot out the articles. Articles are words like the, a like a cat, the like the bag or the boy, the school. Then we also have an egg. So you spot out these words in your essay and then read through the sentence you find each of them. If it does not distort the meaning of that sentence, when you remove it, then you are free to remove it. You can only leave it if it is very necessary for that article to be there. So now we have an example. Here is an example. However, the way couples respond to conflict is more important than the conflict itself. That's the example. Now, I reduce this sentence to read couples' response to conflict is more important than the conflict itself. Are you seeing? So now the words has reduced. It was formerly 14 words, it has reduced to 11 words. Yet the message is still conveyed. The message is the way couples handle conflict is very important. Is more important than the conflict itself. Every message is still intact, yet the words has been reduced. I have a second example. This one is a long sentence. Example 2. Walking through a disagreement in a healthy way by talking respectfully and listening to understand each other is an important component of any relationship, whether it's with a friend, family member, or significant other. Now, to reduce that sentence, I rephrased it. Walking through disagreements in healthy ways by talking respectfully and listening to understand each other is important for any relationship, whether it's with a friend, family member, or significant other. If you notice these words, the article and a that we have in the first sentence has been removed. D has been removed, especially the the or an. That is not necessary, has been removed, yet the content of this sentence is still intact. Okay, so now the second tip I use is avoid repeating the same thing in multiple ways at close proximity. Now, sometimes you find some people make a sentence and still repeat that same thing they said in that sentence in a new sentence, or it might even be in the same sentence, In fact, it might even be in the same sentence. You see repetition of words or of a meaning of a thing in different ways. That too consume a lot of words. Example: partners should be able to talk about how they are feeling and always communicate with one another. Are you seeing? Partners should be able to talk about how they are feeling and always communicate with one another. It's the same thing. The long and short of this whole thing sentence now is partners should always communicate. So look at the reduced words. Partners should always communicate their feelings with one another. And that's all. Your message is still clear. So now 16 words has been reduced to 9 words. So go to the third one. Remove unnecessary words like very, indeed, furthermore, unless it is very necessary for it to be in that sentence. You can remove it unless it is very necessary. Unless, see this sentence I'm using now, unless it is very necessary. It is, if it is very necessary to be there, then you are free to leave it. Now the example there is this lesson has been very useful. This lesson has been very useful. So you can reduce it to this lesson has been useful. You see, I've removed the very and the word has reduced. We go to tip number 4. Tip number 4. Remove unnecessary prepositions. What are prepositions? Prepositions are words that precede a noun or pronoun, expressing the relation of a word to another. We have words like for, to, as in F-O-R, for, to, and of. All these words consume lots of spaces. It makes your essay voluminous. If you even as you are typing, you just search for each of these words. You see how voluminous they are in your passage. They always creep in at one point or the other. So you can remove those ones that are not necessary, those ones that are insignificant, those ones that if you remove, it will not distort the message of that sentence. We have example. Significant others should be able to talk about how they are feeling and to empathize with one another. So now to reduce that, you can say significant others should talk about how they are feeling and empathize with one another. Are you seeing? So I've removed the plenty to that we have there, and I've also removed yes, I think it's mainly to we have in that sentence. See, it has reduced from 17 words to 14 words. Now tip number 5. Avoid repetitive phrases. Avoid repetitive phrases. For example, I realized that the songs added a whole lot of meaning to the event. A whole lot of meaning to the event. That's a repetitive phrase because a whole also means lots. So we are like repeating this phrase again. So to reduce that, this sentence, it reads, I realized that the songs added much meaning to the event. You see, in place of this a whole lot, I replace it with much. A whole lot is consuming just three words. I reduce it to just one. And then the sentence reduced from 14 words to 11 words. So now let's look at the sixth tip. The sixth tip number 6, look out for unnecessary subjects. Subjects like what? WHAT, there, THERERE, then that, THAT. Now the example we have there, partners should talk about what they want and don't want, and what feels good or doesn't. See the reduced words. Partners should talk about what they like and dislike. See, it's that simple. Partners should talk about what they like and dislike instead of the what they want, what they feel. See, it has reduced from 16 words to 19 words. Then the seventh tip we have there is use of active voice instead of passive voice. Passive voice conveys the thought that the subject performs the action of the verb, but in active voice it is the subject that performs the action of the verb. So what we are trying to say here is it should not be the subject should be who is performing the action, not the other way around. Like you see the examples, or before the examples, there are verbs like is, was, been, be. Now look at the example. Mary was attacked by the dog. Mary was attacked by the dog. The object in this sentence is the dog. So who is suffering from the action? It is Mary. So Mary is the subject. So what passive voice does, it makes it look like the subject is the one suffering or suffering the action or experiencing the action. But in passive voice, it is the opposite. The dog attacked Mary. Now, instead of making Mary the object like the passive voice did, in their passive voice, Mary was the object, while the subject was the dog. Instead of making Mary the object, in the active voice makes Mary the subject, and the object was the dog. The object was the dog. So the subject was what will experience the action. What got the action is Mary. Mary is the subject. So I think that let me edit this part. So passive voice makes it seem like the subject is the one performing the action, but for the active voice, the the object performs the action of the verb. The object, let me change this. The object performs the action of the verb. So whenever you are writing, always use the active voice. And active voice carries verbs like is, was, been, be. Now in this example, the active voice here, verb here is was. So the object is actually what is performing the action. the object is actually what is performing the action. You can see it in the active words. The dog attacked Mary. So in active voice, the object performs the action. But in passive voice, it makes it seem like it is the subject that bears the performs the act. So always write in the active voice, and you see that your words will reduce as it reduces here from 6 words to 4 words. So let's go to the 8th tip. Paraphrase words. Paraphrase words. See our example there. We are using one of the examples up above. Working through a disagreement in a healthy way by talking respectfully and listening to understand each other is an important component of any relationship, whether it's with a friend, family member, or significant other. Now we have to paraphrase this long sentence and make it short. Talking respectfully and listening are the best ways to resolve disagreements in a relationship between spouse, friends, and family members. Full stop. You see, the word has been paraphrased and it's reduced from 34 words to 20 words. So that's the 8th tip that helped me to write my essay, and I really excelled in that essay. So let's go to the 9th tip. Form sentences from a long sentence. You can form sentences from a long sentence that is long, just cut it short. Still, the content will not be distorted, because when sentences are long, most times you'll be using yet and, because you want to join the message you are trying to pass across, you'll be using lots of and, but, yet, and so many others. So you can just form a sentence from a long sentence. Now, here's an example. We still use this example we use above. Okay, working through a disagreement in a healthy way by talking respectfully and listening to understand each other is an important component of any relationship, whether it's with a friend, family members, or significant other. So now let's reduce it. We'll reduce it now. This is the example. This is one sentence. Now I want to cut it short to make it 2 sentences. 2 sentences now. Listening and talking respectfully can resolve disagreement. Full stop. That's one sentence. This is important for any relationship to thrive, whether it is between friends, spouse, or family members. You see, it has reduced from 34 words to 24 words, yet the message is still intact. The content is still intact. It's not distorted. So let's look at the 10th tip, the last one. Remove repetitive sentences, especially when they both convey similar messages, and make it just one sentence. Remove repetitive sentences, especially when they both convey similar messages, and make it a sentence. Look at the example we have. If it's difficult to share true feelings with the other person, it may mean lack of trust. Holding back feelings could mean that we are not sure of the other person's response. You see, These two sentences, they are saying the same thing but in different ways. The first sentence is trying to say that it's because there is no trust. One cannot express their true feelings with the other person. It's the same message the second sentence is conveying. So you can just do away with one and you reduce your word count. Okay? So look at the reduced words now. If it's difficult to share true feelings with the other person, it means we do not trust the other person's response. Full stop. If it's difficult to share true feelings with the other person, it means we do not trust the other person's response. See? Everything now has been reduced. 31 words in the example, first example, has now been reduced to 21 words. We have removed totally the second sentence. We convey everything in just one sentence. So these are the 10 tips that really helped me in my essay. I was having a very tight word count, 500, and I had too many things to write, all in 500 words. In fact, that was my first test in that essay, to be able to still convey all the content in reduced words. That was very big for me. But you see, these tips, they really helped me. So I thought I should share. And I'm very sure if you apply these tips, it will help you to reduce your word count in your essays without reducing the content. Now, as a summary, the 10 points are: spot out the articles, the A, N, and D. T, D, THE, A, and A and D, like the bag, a cat, and then the second one, avoid repeating the same thing in multiple ways at close proximity. We've seen the example of that one. Then the third one, remove unnecessary words like very, indeed, furthermore. Sometimes these words are not necessary. We can only leave it if it is very necessary. If you remove it and you see that your message is still intact, then you can make do without it. Then the fourth one, remove unnecessary prepositions. The fifth one, avoid repetitive phrases. The sixth one, look out for unnecessary subjects. Subjects like what, there, that. Then the seventh tip, use of active voice instead of passive voice. Now we discuss about active voice, but in fact it's mostly recommended to always use the active voice, because the active voice helps you to make the object to be what is performing the action and not the other way around. So it's usually recommended that the active voice should be used in your sentences, and then it helps to reduce your word count. Then we have number 8, paraphrasing words. Paraphrase words. Reduce your words by paraphrasing it. It will not distort the content, but it will reduce your words. Then the ninth one, form sentences from a long sentence. You can form 2 sentences from one sentence, like we did in the example. Then the 10th one, remove repetitive sentences. If the sentence is conveying the same message, remove it entirely. Just take only one. Especially if there are 2 sentences, just take only one, like the example we gave. I'm sure if you follow these tips, it will help you. So if this was helpful to you, please like and share. You are also free to comment on my channel. Thank you for watching.